Good day, everyone, and welcome to Different Stages Radio. I'm your host, JJ, broadcasting in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And my guest today, you know him from such bands as Edge of Forever, Hardline, oh yeah, Hardline, Vanden Plas and Yorn. You also know him from his work with Revolution Saints, Graham Bonnet, Giant, Harem Scarum, and many more. He will be in Vancouver this Friday, July the 18th, as part of the supergroup Progject. Please welcome my guest, Alessandro Del Vecchio. How are you?
I'm very good, and I thank you for the great introduction. Sometimes I don't know if it's because of I'm humbled to do this, but sometimes when I hear the names, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm Harem Scarum, obviously, and this I forget how many great things I've done. Oh my God.
Well, I think we could just do a show strictly on your credits. So maybe we'll
Uh,
just do that as
it would be endless.
which you should be very proud of. So it's not that you need to keep busy. I have this feeling that you just love to stay busy. So what was it that drew you to Progject? And can you fill people in that may not know what Progject is all about?
Yeah, so as you said, I don't I always say that I don't need to work. It's not that I don't need the money and everything that comes, as an optional from work. But I've never chased anything in my life. My main objective has always been to be good so that I was ready for any occasion that would come. And my life has always been, work after work. And sometimes I'm like, I, really? I mean, that's how I got into this thing because I worked with that guy that talked to this guy and who talked with that other guy. And, it's the way I stumbled into the project thing. It's crazy because it's an acquaintance that I encountered 20 plus years ago. Was the first singer of Edge of Forever, Bob Harris, who actually sang with Frank Zappa for a few years because the project was looking for a singer. And between Mike Keneally, and then we'll dive into that, between Mike Keneally and Pete Griffin, the guitarist and bass player of the band, they all worked with Zappa or the Zappa family. So it was natural for Mike to go like, maybe we can ask Bob Harris if he's, willing to do it. They talked to Bob, and Bob said, it's 15 years too late. I don't want to tour anymore, but I have a guy who can do that because he plays keyboards and he's got the range, and I think he's willing to do it. And at that time, I didn't need another band. But when Jonathan wrote me, I was like, what? That's Jonathan Mover from Satriani and Alice Cooper and Marillion and all of these bands.
You are.
And he was like, I have this band with Mike Keneally, Pete Griffin, and Ryo Okumoto. Would you like to join? Where we do this prog rock classic repertoire. And Bob Harris suggested your name. Do you want to do it? And I'm the kind of person that I need challenges all the time because I'm torn between the imposter syndrome and the will to make always greater things. I always say that I only have this time in my life in this dimension right now, and I have so much music in me, and I want to, because I don't know if I will be able to do it somewhere else or in another thing. So I always have this great strength and will to make music. So as soon as you throw a stone to me, unless it's something that I have to say no, I will say yes because I love the challenge. And this kind of mindset in my life always brought me to do better things and more difficult things and more engaging and more professional things because I always saw myself as an evolving creature in the music business, not just one thing, and be okay with anything that I make. But I want to challenge myself with new inputs, working with more musicians because you never know what can happen.
So instead of a Swiss Army knife, you're kind of a Italian Army knife. Is
Yeah, probably yes. Probably yes. And then I don't know if it's because I'm multitasking, because I'm multi-potential. There's lots of terms to describe people like me. but I've been in this business. I'm now 46 years old, but I signed my first contract 30 years ago. So I've been in this business for 30 years, plus the 5 or so years before that. Let's call them formative years. But I actually, my first gig I was 14. So I've been for 32 years doing this, and I knew that I could sing, so I worked on my singing. I love to play, and I worked on my playing. Then I wanted to write songs, and I wrote 1,000 songs, and then a studio production. I want to see myself, one of those. I don't want to compare myself to anybody because these are all greats, but that sort of Paul McCartney or Mike Oldfield or Devin Townsend, these guys that can, you just put them in a musical environment and they play guitar and they play keyboard and they sing and they write and they produce and they arrange and they do this and they do that. They see music as a whole, and I always see music as a whole thing, not just my keyboard or my voice. And when I get into a band, I love to bring all my experience. I want to be, maybe I'm not going to be the songwriter in the band, but being a songwriter will help me talk a more universal language in music. Being able to play bass or guitar, maybe not being a great guitarist or great bass player, helps me relate to the bass player, helps me talk that language, helps me write knowing the language. And that makes a whole big difference.
So that way, you can definitely adapt people, and people will respect you more because you at least have the basic fundamentals of their instrument understood. Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
the most amazing, phenomenal bass player in the world, but you still know the
yeah,
basics
yeah.
around getting around a
Yeah,
band.
and like talking about Pete Griffin. I mean, that guy. I don't know even how to describe how good he is. But when I talk to him, maybe I go like, maybe you could do that. I talk in bass language, and maybe a singer would talk in dumb language. Would go like, blah, 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 and but obviously the your position in the band becomes it's more solidified, it's stronger. That doesn't mean that you become the leader of the band, because in some bands I'm just part of the team, but you make the team stronger because you have more knowledge.
And being a complete unit. And this is a pretty ridiculous band. So people that don't know what the rest of the band is, like you mentioned earlier, Jonathan Mover, Pete Griffin, Mike Keneally, some guy, Ryo, can he play it much? No, like he's just, he can't play, can he?
Yeah,
So
I
tell
mean
me about these guys. Like he just got some serious skill in this band.
everybody in this band, and I take myself out of the equation, but you have to have that, the kind of level. But the purpose of this band is to kill everybody with chops. So if you're singing, you have to sing everything from Rush to Yes to Gentle Giant. If you're playing, it's the same thing. And once you have players of that caliber, and they don't need to prove anything, but you kill people with chops and you play songs that other people cannot play, then the show becomes something different, because whoever goes to see Mike Keneally with the history that he has with Frank Zappa and Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and Devin Townsend and James LeBrie and this and that, you know that you're going to get an amazing guitar player and musician all around. But it's a special thing when everybody's like that. It's like go seeing, the All Stars NBA team. You got the best of the best. That's why when I got called, I was like, what? And because I knew the band because Michael Sadler was singing before me, and I was like, wow, that's kind of a cool thing to get the place of Michael, which I toured with in 2016. So I mean, it's all full circles, but you have to be on top of your game, and it's I don't know, it's also inspiring, as a musician to be, in the same room and stage and travel and talk to these guys. I mean, like yesterday we were at dinner, and Jonathan Moore was like, "Oh, when I played with Mike Oldfield," and I turned around and I was like, "Did you?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, many times ago I subbed for Simon Phillips, blah blah blah," and I was like, Am I in a band with these guys? I mean, it's insane. It's
And it,
insane. But then they talk to me, and it's the same thing. They're like, "Oh, did you work with this? Did you work with that? Did you work with, And it's the level of a band. It's incredible.
you're kind of needing to pinch yourself sometimes and go, is this really happening? And they're just speaking
Yeah.
these things just matter of fact.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But going back to the music and the bands that you're covering, like Rush, and then also you do some Bill Bruford solo as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, 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 but
Is
not
it
on this
okay?
tour.
Okay.
Not on this tour, but the last tour we were doing Bill Bruford solo stuff,
Yeah.
and we did Peter Gabriel. On the last tour, we're not doing it now, but we're doing like Gentle Giant, ELP, Rush, Genesis, King Crimson, Pink Floyd, and we tried to do a good balance between known stuff, from these bands and obscure stuff. And obviously, if you we do UK, which is everybody's favorite band, so that's kind of cool. But you would try to balance. You go from Jethro Tull, which is once you do Locomotive Breath
Carry on.
uh, and it's that people, even the non-prog lovers, know Money from Pink Floyd. They might know a little bit of Genesis from obviously the prog era, and but we try to balance that, and but still, I mean, even the known songs, it takes so much, musicality and talent to pull them off the way we want to pull them off. Like we it's not that we have to prove anything, but once you read the names, you know that it has to be of the highest caliber and level.
Well, that's the thing. I look at not just the musicians and the bands that you're covering. I look at the musicians that are involved, including yourself, replicating it. And it's one thing for a cover band to try to attempt to do some of these songs, but I think it has a lot more integrity when it's seasoned musicians. And I'm going to throw you in there as well. I feel that you're a bit of an old soul
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
in,
absolutely.
in a
Yeah, yeah,
polite way that
yeah.
if you're wanting to see it in a more of a true form with actual feel and authenticity and respect to the song, and not trying to overshadow the song and take away from the song, I think Progject is really what people want to see. Sound good?
I have to say yes. I mean, I don't want to brag about ourselves, but it is like that. And the thing is that we with cover band or tribute bands, they try to sound alike, and sometimes you throw under the bus your natural instinct on how you would play those things. But with this level of a band, we don't need to sound like Rush. We have to play Rush the way we play it, which is accurate, but it's a whole new dimension. And so that people, I mean, if you want to see a Rush tribute, you just go and watch a Rush tribute. But if you want to see a whole show about Prog, you just go watch us, you go watch Progject, and you see a band that's consistent in their own sound all through the repertoire. Because I mean, imagine once you play UK and ELP, it's two different worlds, and also vocally, it's a challenge, but it's the thing that I like, that I have to go from Jethro Tull to Rush to Yes, and to Genesis and more intimate stuff, and then King Crimson. It's all going into different territories, but still making it sound like myself. I'm not a copy of anybody else. I try to sound as authentic as possible. So I give Yes my own spin and Rush my own spin. But the thing is that I love all these bands, so I know how to pull it off and make it legit, still sounding like myself. And that's what everybody else does in the band.
And I can just so hear it in your voice how you love the challenge. You just love the challenge.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Keep creating, keep pushing, seeing
yeah.
what other doors may open all the time. Like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Or
Yeah, I mean, some of my friends, they go like, when do you stop? And to me, music, it's a whole universe. I mean, and every day you discover new bands, new music, new things, and it's a whole evolving thing. And and I pride myself, and I'm happy that I've always been like this, and I pride myself on saying, Well, I've worked in dance and pop and musical and prog and metal and death metal and this and that and rock and I see music as a whole thing. Then obviously I have the music where I know that I shine and I'm better at, obviously because it's the music that I feel in my soul. But I don't see music as genres. I see music as a whole thing. So, I mean, in my playlists are always going from James Taylor to Testament to Alanis Morissette to anything. I mean, to Lady Gaga to Dua Lipa and to Planet Funk and everything. I see music as a whole, and if it's a good song, I don't care if it's a dance song. If it's a great melody, it's a great melody.
Good for you. That is great. But now with this current run, you're about three-quarters of the way through the West Coast run of Progject. You're going to be in
Yeah,
Seattle tonight on July the 17th.
yeah.
Now, how has it been going so far? The first.
It's been going great. I mean, we had a Spinal Tap moment on the first show because Ryo's rig fell on the floor on the first song, but a few minutes and it was all fixed. But people were like, "Oh my God, you guys pulled it off and made a great show out of it." And now it's going great. It's going great. The reception has been great, and we've been mostly sold out all the shows. So we're very happy. And next year we're already working on next year's tour, which is going to be bigger. So we're trying to scale up as we go.
Excellent. And now I see that you're trying to make the best out of an unfortunate situation about how Vanden Plas was going to be playing at Prague
Yes.
Power
Yeah.
this summer, or I guess in September. And sadly, the rest of the band, other than yourself, and it seems that this has been an ongoing issue for many, many bands having issues getting their US visas, which is just brutal. And I've heard so many bands and artists and tour um, roadies and so forth applying months and months, often even perhaps a year in advance, and still
Yeah.
waiting. So that's really unfortunate that Vanden Plas isn't playing. However, the good news is that
Progject will play Prog Power. And I mean, it was very natural because I have a US visa already. And I didn't need to do the visa for Prog Power because I already have a US visa, which allows me to work. But we wanted to do the things, like we wanted to avoid any kind of problem. So Prog Power paid for my visa, for my P1 visa on top of the visa that I have. And I was the first one to do the interview in the band, and I got my visa, and I'm the only one who had the visa stacked on my passport from the band. And then the timing that the German embassies had for Stefan, the guitarist, were so late that we couldn't even buy the tickets. And I don't want to get into politics and everything, but it's become, unfortunately, extremely difficult to play in the US. It's unfortunate because for most of the bands, that could be the biggest market, but for whatever reason, they're making it difficult. And I can understand, but I cannot comply with that. I don't want to understand that because, for one day of work, it's so expensive and it's so time draining and it takes so much manpower to get a visa. That's crazy. I mean, when I did my US visa, my whole petition was 390 pages of interviews, recommendation letters, and everything that you could find online because now they want to make sure that you're qualified internationally so that the US really needs your job. So sometimes they go like, why should we get X band from France when we have so many bands in the US? You don't qualify internationally to come and play here. And maybe for a festival like Prog Power, qualifying internationally can also mean that you're on your own. You would sell 500 tickets to a small festival, but they don't see it worth, and you pay for the application and then you get denied, and it's crazy. But and that's what I mean. It's not what happened to Vanden Plas. It was the visas were so the petition was approved. We only needed to do the interviews, but the timing was impossible to make it work. And even if you tell them, but my show is at September 5th, if you interview me on August 28th, how can I
too close.
buy the tickets. It's impossible. You don't even get your passport back. They go like, we're sorry, we have no, that's our time slot, because they don't need you. It's the band need to play in the US. So they go like, they use, it's a power game.
And they're still getting their money from you either way, whether
absolutely
it's or not. So
and I
benefit to them to let you in.
And I gotta tell you, I mean, Vanden Plas applied with the premium processing, which is even more expensive. And it's money that you will never get back, and it's all in their hands. And it is what it is. I mean, that's nature of the game, unfortunately.
And not just the money, but the time. That's the thing too, is people just, oh, that costs a lot of money, but it's a lot of time, a lot of mental energy put into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really do a lot to you emotionally.
And yeah, and then Prog Power this year, I don't know, maybe like 7, 8, 10 bands, they had to cancel because of visa problems. And, some bands like Jelusic, in which Dino doesn't need introduction. He's been singing with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which is the biggest US act of all time. And, and if Dino doesn't qualify, who else does qualify? If you get to the, in the hands of the wrong agent, they go like, oh, but you're just a Croatian guy, you're just an Italian guy, why should you qualify? And maybe you have a record of, thousands of, records and million sales, but they don't care. That's the nature of the game. Unfortunately, it's the nature of the game and the nature of the US immigration beast. It is what it is. We have to just take it for what it is, and I understand, I mean, it's whatever the policy is, but with musicians, they make it so hard. And
it only seems it might actually get worse before it gets better. I sure hope not, but it just seems to be going in that direction.
But it's been like this for, now it's hard.
Yeah.
It's harder, but it's been like this in the last, I would say, 2 administrations. Mm-hmm. Oh, even Trump first term, but also under the Biden administration, it wasn't easy. I mean, obviously that COVID, but it wasn't easy. And I made my visa under Biden, and it was tough, man. It was tough, and I'll make you laugh.
Okay.
So I had recommendation letters from anybody that I worked with, and one of those was Steve Lukather, who's also a friend. So he wrote a nice letter, and it says, "Hi, my name is Steve Lukather. I'm a Grammy winner musician, blah blah blah, and played with Toto, and 80 million records sold, and hundreds of millions of copies sold on the sessions that I played, and played on thousands, like 3,000 records." So he wrote a nice letter, and the agent that made my petition denied that letter, and he said, "Oh, we need proof. Anybody can say that they're Grammy winners." And I was like, and I asked my lawyer, I said, why don't they just Google? And they said, it's not their job to Google. It's your job to prove every word you say. So we had to get like a notification from the academies that Steve Lukather actually won, whatever, it's 5-time Grammy winner. It's crazy, but it's at that level. I mean, even if when you have a strong recommendation letter, it could be a problem, because then you need to ask the academy, oh, can we get a certification, a notification of any kind of official letter that says that whatever Mr. Steve Lukather says, it's true. So we're at that level.
And now it's costing you more time, more money, more headaches, more anxiety.
Yes,
you don't need.
Yeah, because they give you 2 weeks. And what if the academy doesn't answer? What if your musician friend is on tour and cannot work on anything? What if it's all crazy.
Well, we'll look at the bright side a little bit, if I can try to find some here regarding Vanden Plas, is that you are now officially part of the band. You did record their last album, The Imperium Equation of the Lost, Long Lost Things. That's a mouthful. Great record. I've played a few tracks on the Different Stages radio show. How has that process been? Because I was noticed, before you answer quickly, when I'm listening to this record, I've always followed them, but I will be honest, I haven't like really, really dove in. but I always liked what I was listening to, and it's always been in the back of my mind. I need to give this band more time. But the few tracks that I've heard from the recent record, I'm like, why does this seem like it's perhaps even just jumped a bit further? So I don't know if you're to blame or if it's the band as a unit, but talk about the new record.
So I thank you very much for saying that. I don't see myself as an improvement for the band because the keyboard player Gunther Werno, who I substituted, I got the place for 2 years ago. He's an incredible musician, and he's been with. I mean, the band had the same lineup for 30 plus years, so that was the first change in the lineup. I can say that I brought a new dimension, and that lifted the songs to a different place. I'm not saying better or anything, but to a different place for sure. And it seemed to work. It worked, and it wasn't planned. I just played instinctively what the songs were calling for. But I respect the band, and I know the band very well, and it's one of my favorite prog bands of all time. So I knew what the band needed, but also, again, I'm not copying anybody. So I came with different sounds, different layers, and a different approach. Because, keyboard wise, I'm self-taught. I'm not, I don't have a formal education on keyboards. So I just play what the songs call for. And I didn't plan to add anything else than, let me listen to the songs. And that's what I would do on the songs. And it turned out to be amazing. And the band never had such a long tour like, for this record. So it really seemed to work. But we have 40 plus shows as a tour, which is, for a band like Vanden Plas, it's impressive. And so it seemed to work. And, and I'm very, very happy about that because it's, the band is incredible. It's great guys, incredible musicians. And it is what I needed to have, in that moment when they called. I was about to say no because I was so busy. But then I was like, let's do one thing. Let's say yes. Let's get the challenge and let's take away, the branches that might fall and break. And that's what I did. I made space and time, and I'm so grateful that I did that. I'm so happy that I could foresee in that moment that I needed to have this band because it reignited my playing and my and again, it was another challenge because I had to learn songs that were not in my let's say environment, and songs that I never played. And it's an established band with an established sound, and somehow I had to fit into that with my own personality. And thank God I did say yes. And it's been, I'm so proud, to be in Vanden Plas. And, and it's incredible because, when they called, they said, oh, maybe we do 5-6 shows. And then it turned out to be 40 plus. So it's amazing.
That is great. Now, some opportunities coming your way. Is there something happening with an up and coming drummer by the name of Simon Phillips?
Yes.
I'm
working on
a couple things.
Yeah, it's the good old Simon. I'm working on my solo record, which is instrumental, and it's keyboard driven. It's a prog jazz rock record. It's only keyboard, bass, and drums, and there's a very few guitar solos, but it's like 3 guitar solos. That's it. But the rest of the songs are all keyboard based. And I wrote the record with Simon in mind. So when I spoke to him, I said, if you say no, I don't know what to do, because I wrote the songs with you in mind. I'm going to send you the songs. You tell me if I made it right or if you don't like them. And he wrote back and he said, yeah, let's do this. It's going to be challenging because it's not easy stuff that I wrote. And he came back and it's incredible. I cannot wait to release it. It's going to be probably beginning of next year. And I cannot wait to release it because it's different. And, and there's not many keyboard trios out there. You know, you maybe, you know, if you're familiar with the band Niacin, with John Novello and I
Let's go digging.
yeah, it's awesome. You know, it's almost like Niacin meets UK, the trio record, the second record, Danger Money, meets Hiromi a little bit,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
meets
That's cool.
yeah, meets Derek Sherinian's solo stuff, meets a little bit of Chick Corea, but a small hint. So it's an interesting record, and anybody who heard that was like, did you have that in you? How does it come out? But then we go back to the beginning. Uh, it's the challenge, you know. When I never, I'm not a solo artist, but I had this idea of, I was like, you know, out of everything that I've done, I've never done a record that's keyboard, like keyboard heavy based. Maybe I do this, but if I want to do it, I want to do something that nobody, you know, is expecting from me, something that's out of the blue and it's incredible. Hopefully it's hopefully incredible, but incredible for me. And I started to sit down, and then I came up with the first song that I wrote, which is the song that's the title of the record, which is going to be Dystopia. It's a song that maybe all Di Meola could have written. It's all strange measures and it's all unisons and it's crazy, and it's the first song that I sent Simon, and it's every measure of the riff changes the meter. So the first is 15/16, and then it's 17/16. So it's all like the accents are all over the place. And you know, so I wrote something that, you know, if I ever have the chance to play it live, I will have to work so hard to play it. But it's a challenge that comes with it. That's part of the journey.
Always looking for the challenge and always
Always,
working with phenomenal musicians. Now, no,
always.
I haven't worked with a ton of phenomenal musicians, but I wanted to ask, as far as active musicians, people that are still out there that you haven't worked with, but before you answer that though, other than Tony Iommi, because I know he's suing you, we can get to that. Tony's suing you, so we'll leave him out of there. But are there any other musicians out there you're dying to work with that person?
So I always aimed high, you know, and you have to remember, I come from Italy. And when I was a kid, and I was saying, I want to play rock, and I know that I will do it internationally. Everybody was like, stop it. And now I'm the guy who played with the history of rock and roll. So I will, and when I was a kid, I was always aiming high. I was like, oh, what if a day I will play with Deep Purple, and then I played with all of them. What if I do Toto? You know, I always imagined myself being at the level. Talking about that, I'm gonna shoot very high, but I would say Paul McCartney, Brian May, uh, probably Steve Vai, and talking about bands, I would have loved to get the Whitesnake gig, which I auditioned for. I got to the finish line, and then it didn't work out. But that would have been incredible. I know that I would have been perfect for the job, and that's what they thought too. So, but that would have been incredible. I mean, to get the gig, it would have been incredible. So I would say Whitesnake, but they're not active anymore, and maybe Yngwie Malmsteen, just because. No, no,
Just
just
because,
because
just because.
just because
Yeah.
I need a little more trouble. No, no, but I would love to. I mean, I owe Yngwie so much because he was, you know, my hero when I was a kid, and I still love those records. And I would be just for the sake of saying I played with Yngwie, but you never know.
And then you can be a Viking.
Yeah, I can turn into a Viking.
Future. Now, you mentioned Whitesnake, and I've been wanting to ask this. This was something that happened a few months ago. I played a song on my radio show by Whitesnake, and I went, okay, I haven't listened to this album in a while. And I'm like, what's going on here? Why does this melody, what is this reminding me of? And it was bugging me for about a day, and I went, it's reminding me of a Revolution Saints song. So
Oh,
I want to ask you this, is this purely by accident, or was this a bit of a subtle thing where I find the track Blind Man, Ready and Willing, has very kind of similar melody and sort of build in some respects to that of Way to the Sun.
so it's a coincidence,
Yeah,
but
but
but I will have to. I know Blind Man very, very well, and when you said Whitesnake, I thought you would go like later in the game in Whitesnake, but you have to know that Radiant Wheeling and Love Hunter are my favorite records from Whitesnake. So probably it's something that was in my DNA. It wasn't intentional. The inspiration for Way to the Sun came from a Dem Yankees song, and so it's not that it came from the Dem Yankee song, but I wanted to have these double vocals between Dean. Then it turned out that I sang the chorus in Way to the Sun, but it was supposed to be Jack. But then Jack was like, "No, you sing it." And I was like, "What?" I turned out to be singing with Dean that song, and yeah, but yeah, it's part of my DNA. I mean, if you say Radiant Wheeling and Blind Man and that era of Whitesnake, it's absolutely in my blood. I mean, I could play all the Whitesnake songs up to probably all the records, because up to Restless Heart, I learned all those songs, and especially in the bluesy years when John Lord was playing with Whitesnake, I really think that John is known for Made in Japan and this and that, but I really believe that John, with David Coverdale for the Burn record and Stormbringer, and Come Taste the Band for Deep Purple, but especially in Love Hunter, Come and Get It, and Radiant Wheeling, John Lord was a king, because he was playing for the songs, and everything that you could hear out of the ordinary was incredibly good.
it all makes sense and all has a purpose.
Absolutely.
Knowing how to let a song breathe and not taking over.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think you nailed it on that, because I had a feeling, because I'm thinking this might just be strictly in your DNA. I don't even know if any of this was intentional, and by no means is it a ripoff, but I'm just, the overall melody and the vibe.
Yeah. The melody and the way the melody builds up. Yeah.
It's like, what's happening here? I'm like, and then there we go, like Way to the Sun.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I wanted to also talk about quickly, before we wrap this up, seeing some of your clips of you doing some vocal lessons and so forth in your office, we'll call it. Sitting down, that just seems interesting for somebody to be singing, especially with that power and strength. Sitting down, does that just work for you? Is it?
No, it's so the way our body works and our voice works, you can do the same exact thing sitting down or standing up. It doesn't make a difference, because it's all about the position of your core and your back. And once you keep your lordosis, which is the curvature in your lower back, your core engages the work of your diaphragm exactly the same as you're standing up. And lots of singers like Jeff Scott Soto and many others, they record also sitting down. And I'm only singing standing up when I'm on stage, and maybe in some rehearsals. But but for the body, it doesn't change anything. Obviously, if you're performing live and you want to get some physical element that you want to translate into the performance, that it's a different thing. But you can strip that off and still get the same emotional translation into the songs. Exactly.
So it works just fine for you. Don't correct what's already working. Don't broke what's not fixed.
Yeah. And I always tell my students, just, it has to be easy. Sometimes singing seems, it's always difficult, but it is not. I mean, our body is built and wired to do this. You just have to find the ease in the process, and it's not easy. It's difficult to strip down all the instinctive elements, like you want to push, you want to shout, you want to belt, but the voice has to be easy. And that has saved me and given me so many jobs, because I can I'm knocking on wood because you never know, but I rarely need days off vocally. Like I can do 10 shows in a row. Obviously, with my routine, I'm straight edge. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't party, I sleep. On the road, I'm a monk, because to me the voice and the music come first. But I found such a place where my voice is so naturally coming out, even in a very difficult repertoire, that I don't need that much recovery. If everything else, if my sleep routine is in place, if my food and water intake is in place, and if I can hear myself. And that's given me way more opportunities, because also between teaching and vocal recordings, I don't know how many vocal recordings I do every week, between writing songs and sending out demos and actual recordings for backing vocals and songs and this and that. I gotta have my voice ready every week, every day. And I don't want to be standing up the whole day only because I gotta record some vocals. So I worked on what all the vocal doctors say, that the voice has to be easy. I mean, the voice has to float out of you. You don't have to push it out. And, but yeah, I mean, those videos, at the beginning, I was a little, because I had this idea, I was like, why don't I just do a short series of those iconic phrasings, and just to put out there this thing about, vocal technique, and the vocal technique that I've been teaching and using as a producer, as a vocal producer, because I've been producing all these great singers, and I've used my vocal coaching for that. Let's put it out and see what happens. My first video went viral, so it's hundreds of shares and comments, and but that is proof that the singing must be easy. And I just toured with Glenn Hughes again, and he's like 74 or 5.
Glenn's awesome.
And still, I mean, but when he sings, the body is like, if you touch him, is like soft. There's no tension. And that is the secret. I mean, if all the great singers, you see them, especially when they age, when they get older, their bodies get more, those who kept their voice, it became easier with age, and it must be like that.
Well, I'd say Glenn is a good example, and you're talking about it as well, because I guess after all, it is a muscle, and as long as you're keeping it active and you don't leave it sitting dormant for a long time, and then you try to belt, you can't. And I think that's what's happening with a good chunk of our peers, perhaps, is that they've probably just been, their voice has been taken over time. So as long as you're keeping working on it, maybe you're not doing a few hundred shows a year, but still, like yourself, you're in the studio all the time. You're always working on your voice, and you're just keeping that active.
Yeah, and I always use this metaphor for vocals. Singing is like marathons. It's like running marathons, because it's a long process, but the pace is what's going to change the game. And most of the singers don't run marathons. They run, the 100 meters, and the pace is going to change. If you want to finish a marathon, pace is everything. You start slow and you keep the pace. It doesn't matter. You have to keep your pace. If you keep your pace, there are people running 100 marathons in 100 days. I mean, there are people doing incredible things because they find the sweet spot and just keep their pace. And the voice is exactly the same. There's nothing magic about the voice. It's just another organ and a combination of muscles that work. But you need to find the pace, the right pace. If you find the right pace, you can do extraordinary things, maintaining your system and your sound and your tone and your energy and your delivery all the time at your command, like this.
Just like that. Well, and aside from your upcoming solo album, which you said is tentatively looking like early next year, Is there other things that we can expect with your voice or your keyboards or your production work on in the coming?
Yes, we're in the studio with Hardline for a new record, which is coming out beginning of next year too. And we're planning a tour next year. So we're excited because we're coming back with a new record company, new tour. So we're all excited. We cannot wait to do that. And we're working with Vanden Plas. We're working on a surprise record and on a new record which will come out in 2 years. So it's a long-term plan. Then I'm working in the studio with Vinny Appice on a project called Dark Bridge. We already released 2 songs. It's a doomy version of Black Sabbath with nice, let's say, esoteric vocals and lyrics. But it's kind of a cool. It's almost like Candlemass, with high vocals, still high vocals like Candlemass, but very dark and very obscure. With Vinny on drums. And then I've been mixing a lot of bands from anywhere in the world. And I'm working with a Canadian band called Fatal Vision. They're from Ontario. And I've been singing backing vocals on all their records with guys like Harry Hess and the guys from Boulevard and Michael Shotton from Funk Groove, to name a few Canadians, Jessica Soto and other guys, and with the same singer. His name is Sam Marwood. We have a project called Lost and Found, which will come out eventually this year. We're just putting the last touches on the mixes of the record, and with Phillips, another Canadian fellow, on guitar. Ron Wisco on drums, on drums, and Lee Sklar on bass, and Mark Holden from Boulevard on saxophone. So I'm always I always end up surrounding myself with great musicians, which is great. So, but talking about priority records for my bands, it's going to be Hardline and Vanden Plas. And Edge of Forever, I'm starting to write the record, but we're changing the lineup, so it's a bit of a process, and I still need to find the place to write the record that I have in mind. I wrote down some ideas, but I have Edge of Forever always changed for every record, and I have a thought, I have an idea, a sonic idea, and I need the right lineup to do that, and I need the right songs. So I'm taking that as it comes. I know that I'll get to that. I'll write that first song that will break then the whole flood, and I will be like, boom, okay. No, it's gonna be like an actual flood of songs out of myself.
Your motivation, drive, and intensity is infectious.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
It's awesome. So I want to remind everybody, please go and see Progject tonight in Seattle, July the 17th. By all means as well, go see them in Vancouver, where this show is located. Friday, July the 18th. There will be East Coast dates to be announced at some point. Is that correct?
Yeah, but for next year, yes.
And in September, by all means, go see Progject as part of the Prog Power Festival in Atlanta.
Absolutely.
Alessandro Del Vecchio, this was fun. Thanks for being a guest.
Thank you. I'm Italian, so I love to talk.
I hope we do it again sometime, because there's many more things that we could be talking about, but I don't want to.
Absolutely. Anytime you want me as your guest, I'm here.
I appreciate it. This is Different Stages Radio.